Good morning, Bootlip Nation. We are back at the Yentzen Tribute. Now, previous video, we turned the top or the barrel. Anybody can turn tops though. The hard part is the insert. And for those of y'all that know or that smoke, these take a lot of air. So we're going to turn a J-frame insert, and we're going to see how that turns out. A piece of straight grain Bois D Arc, not cross grain. It's about 4 3/4 inches long, which is a little bit longer than I typically cut my inserts. But the reason it's longer is because I got to do this in a little different. We'll get it chucked up and see what we can't figure out. Don't get it cut down for the tenon. that is what I use for a tenon wrench. 5/8 wrench sharpened, and it will cut either direction. I find it's easier. Just keep that pushed against the bottom of the, and just let it slip in, and it'll cut your tenon down to 5/8, which is real close, but it's not an actual fit yet. So this is where we trim it down. And we're gonna friction fit it, and we're gonna make sure it fits real tight, and this end of the barrel fits up tight against the insert. May be able to just sand that to get it to fit. We'll try that. I have to cut it a little bit. My tenon is actually too long where I cut there's a shoulder inside that caul. So let me get that measured up, and I'll cut that tenon down to where it needs to be. All right, went ahead and got my jig, which is the Pintail P1. And I'm gonna cut that little piece off right there. The shoulder I got from the half to the 5/8 is a little bit too long, and my tenon's not going all the way in. So I am going to try to bore it a little deeper. like we got the fit we were looking for. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this into the call down to the dimension it needs to be. There's a little ridge there, but that'll be taken down with sanding. Yeah, we can get most of it rounded down. I'm taking some measurements here. On this jig, I found that a 1/2 inch down from the end of the jig is the best place to stop the tone channel. So we're going to take some measurements. Overall length of my tenon is going to be 2 1/4. So we'll just add so that's how deep my tone channel is going to be. We'll just add this to whatever the overall on this is, and that's how deep we'll cut our tone channel. Now we'll cut some reference marks. On our overall length. It's pretty good from here. Break out our pull saw. Go ahead and cut that end off. And we'll go ahead and square this up. Y'all be real careful. Whenever you don't have the tailstock engaged, you risk I couldn't tell you how many of these I've blown up because I didn't have the tailstock in there. we know our tone channel is going to be that deep, so I'm going to transfer that measurement to this end just to get a measurement for where to set my drill bit. It is close enough. All right, we got the measurement for our tone channel on here. Now, the way I like to mark it out, I get the shoulder of the bit, not the tip, but the shoulder at depth. And that's where we'll put a piece of tape right there just to mark our depth. That's how deep we're going to drill that hole. First, I'm going to take my step bit and drill my counter bore. Where we hunt down here, there's no trees. We're all hunting the marsh, so most of our calls are open water where they can be loud, but we'll tune this one here later where we can blow it quiet. I try to do all my drilling before I ever take this out of the chuck, because this is as straight as you're going to get. Trying to get away from a offset tone channel where the tone channel goes one way or the other in the jig. I'll get more into that later. You can experiment with different depths, all the way up to a 1/2 inch or however wide this is. You can make your bore, your exhaust port, as big or as small as you want to. Now we're gonna switch the bit out to the 1/4 inch and drill our final tone channel depth. If you're drilling acrylics, this part has to be real slow, but since it's wood, we don't have to go that slow. Take your time here, there's no rush. and it's cut to final depth. We're going to do our final shaping and sanding. Y'all can sand whatever. I sand in 3 phases. Start with 180, I jump to 320, and then to 600. Your quality of finish, you could start with 60 and go all the way up to 12,000 if you want to. This is just how I do. Every grit you want to run with the grain before you switch to the next grit. So get out any tool marks you might have left. Jump to the 320. .320 is the stage where I put any burn lines in the wood that I'm going to put. Since we burnt the mouthpiece, we're going to burn the exhaust port a little bit. We're still on the 320. And now I jump to the 600. And that right there is good enough for any oil or wax finish. Real good. I'm gonna put some abrasive paste on it, which is about equal to 1,000 grit. It's also got beeswax and mineral oil in it. The grit is like maybe toothpaste. And that's a white Scotch-Brite. That is natural wood finish, varnished with the sawdust that you just cut. I'm gonna put some shine juice on it, so we'll clean that up with some denatured alcohol. Then we'll apply the shine juice.
How you doing?
Pretty good, bud. You doing all right?
Still don't drink, do you?
No, sir. This is just a friction polish. insert or the bottom is turned to our final shape and finish. Now that you got your final finish done, we're going to get into avoiding an offset tone channel where your tone channel in your call goes one way or the other. We want the tone channel right in the middle of the insert, not going left to right. So I'll get into how to avoid that now. And the way I do it, I've got the end of a 1/4 inch drill bit. The drill bit that I used to drill all my inserts was about that long, so I just cut it off. And I used the leftover end to center up my insert. It's the first time we're pulling this insert out since we first put it in there. Clean out as much of the crud as you can. We're going to put that insert on that 1/4 inch bit. Tighten your tailstock up where this is not moving around. Pull your fence in pretty close. And if y'all notice, it's got a little wobble in it. Well, the tip of our tone channel is about a 1/2 inch in. So I'm going to mark that high spot with a pencil. So you got a little light pencil mark right there. We come down about 1/4 inch and we'll mark the high spot again. Now we have 2 little light pencil marks. And what I'll do is draw a line right in the center of them. And when we stick this in our jig, line up the end, put that line right in the top. That way that high spot is looking this way on your jig. After cutting it out on the bandsaw, see we got a fairly well centered tone channel. It doesn't go off to one side or the other. Before I pull the insert out of the jig, I like to try to clean it up to the jig. Take a rat tail file. I use the edge of the file, which is pretty sharp, just to cut any of the burrs off the edge of the tone channel. Got a little small flat bastard file. I run it in the cork notch. I'll try to smooth down to the jig. use a 180 100 grit emery board to do all my tuning. I'll run it in the cork notch and run it across the jig. Use that little rat tail file to clean up any of the burrs. After we get it sanded to the insert, it's all clean. Go ahead and pull it out, and you've got your rough cut, rough filed, rough sanded insert. And we get to see what our finished call is actually going to look like. I'm not a big fan of the grain difference, but the top is cross-cut. And I do not use cross-cut wood for my inserts, because on the cross-cut, you'll end up, if the grain's running parallel like this, your cork notch will end up breaking. This, the Bois D Arc will weather. It'll all turn a dark brown. So here in a month or so, you won't even be able to tell it's a different color wood. Now that it's out of the jig, I'm just going to do a light pass on the cork notch and all the way down the tone channel, just to knock off any rough edges. Now, let's talk cork and reeds. My cork, I buy it in strips from Echo. I'll take a piece and we'll stick it in the cork notch. Bottom it out. And we're going to trim it off with an X-Acto knife or a pocket knife, just even with the insert. I'm old, I can't see. Now that cork is cut to the right size. I'll dig it out. I'll knock down the edges, the rough edges, with my emery board. The cork notch was kind of tight, so I'm going to file down the cork just a hair and give me some room for the reed. And then you stick it in your mouth. You're going to chew it up and get it soft. My reeds also come from Echo. I buy them 100, 200 at a time. They're mylar. And they come long. What you want to do is find the natural bend. The bend side, the natural bend, is going to look away from your tone channel. Take that reed, bend side up, long, stick it in the bottom of your cork notch. insert your cork. I want the reed at the bottom of the cork notch. That's really tight. Should have chewed on it a little bit longer. Cram it to the bottom of the cork notch. You're ready for your rough tune. Take your barrel, stick your insert in your barrel. This is the first anything. It's hard to blow. That's gonna takes way too much air. The bottom end, the feed call, once I get this reed trimmed up, it's gonna end up hanging up. Your initial trim, y'all can start little bitty, little bitty, little bitty. Down there at the end, I'm gonna be taking little hair-sized pieces off. But that initial trim is normally about 3/16 of an inch. My top end's hanging up. And the bottom end's hanging up. Now after that initial trim, with the high end, the hail call hanging up, and the low end, or the feed call, hanging up, and pull our reed and our cork. Our cork was tight, so we're going to chew it and kind of try to shrink it up a little bit. Your high end is up here at the top, from about midways in your tone channel to the top of the tone channel. Now the end piece here, where it's burnt from the bandsaw, I try to leave that there. If you cut it back any, or cut it more of an angle, that's where you get all your raspy stuff. And I'm not hunting in the trees, so I don't need a bunch of rasp. But your high end is up here. Your hail call, your feed call is from the cork notch to the middle. So we're knocking the whole thing down some. And you're just going to do it a little bit at a time. You're just making some fine dust. Kind of squaring it up. Go ahead and get your reed back in there. We got our high end quacking at least. The low end is hanging up a little. The reed's still a little bit long. So when we get to our fine tuning, we're going to cut very small amounts of reed off. I don't know if y'all can see that. Little bitty bit. High end still hanging up. It's a little more ducky. A little bit more trim. The shorter you make this reed, the higher pitched this call is going to get. Also changes how you tune your tone board. Cork is still fitting pretty tight. So I'm going from the cork notch to the middle for my low end. And I'm gonna go from the middle to the top for my high end. Take my file and I'm gonna flatten it all back out. And we'll give it another lick. Still need some work. Now this part here is every call is different. Trial and error will tell you where you need to sand. Bottom end, the feed call is pretty close. Can't put a whole lot of air into the top end, so we need to do a little more work on the top end. Trim a little bit off the top of the reed. See if that helps my high end any. High end is still sticking. I'm gonna go ahead and trim the corners on this reed. nip on each corner. Still got some sanding to do on that top end. It's hanging up. Real close. Takes longer to tune than it does to turn.